apologies are very important in repairing trust. Apologies can be quite complex, and there are a number of components, and the more of those components that are present, the more likely the apology is to be successful. I won't go through all 6 of the components that are necessary. There have been articles and so forth published on my work on that, but I can tell you that some of the more important components of an apology are, number one, saying I'm sorry, or I recognize that something happened. Second, taking responsibility for what has happened. That is, this was my fault, or I'm the one who didn't fulfill my promise or meet our deal. And third, that the apology offers some way to repair the broken trust or the violation that occurred. What can I do to regain your trust? What can I do to make our relationship better? And maybe that's not something I can do right away, but over time I could work to make sure that our relationship is improved. Because trust is fundamentally a psychological process or a human behavior process. And it has 2 components. It has what we call a cognitive level, a brain level of sort of rationally determining whether the other is trustworthy or whether I should trust them. But it also has a strong emotional component to it. And psychologists essentially are best equipped to look at those elements. So while psychologists normally look at trust in one-on-one relationships or small groups, trust judgments can often carry over to larger entities. The people we work with, doing business with certain organizations, trusting politicians who actively, by the way, abuse our trust almost every day, trusting larger social gatherings. When we talk about trust at those levels, actual dynamics occur in the way individuals make judgments about the other party and about how and whether they're trustworthy or not. And as I said, there's also a strong emotional component to trust. And groups that study larger trust dynamics, like politics or economics or the law, often don't pay attention to those emotional components. They only talk about what I would call the cognitive components or the thought processes involved, but not recognizing how critical emotion is in the trust dynamic. Calculus-based trust is the kind of cognitive-based trust is transactional trust. What I mean by that, it is the trust of mutual exchangements, of payment for goods and services, for honoring a contract, for doing what you say you will do, for selling quality merchandise at a fair price, for keeping a promise or a commitment. Transactional trust is very much an economic transactional element, which is why economists are often very interested in trust. And traditional trust like this is the glue that holds our economic, political, and community systems together. And it's often bounded by law or by contracts. So when we see societies or societal dynamics fall apart in a number of ways, political groups, racial groups, people's trust in the police, for example, all of that is basically a more cognitive or transactional trust. Identification trust is grounded in a degree that we identify with the other party, that we have common interests, that we have common identities. We both, we're of the same race, we're of the same gender, we're the same nationality, we grew up in the same neighborhoods, we have similar attitudes to each other. And this kind of identification occurs more at the emotional level. So we make quick judgments about whether we can trust people based on groups that they're part of or our personal connectivity with them. And is much more emotional based. And when it's violated, therefore, the emotional damage is much more severe, and it's a lot harder to repair that kind of trust.